In 1902, a photograph captured a seemingly innocent moment between a brother and sister. But 123 years later, digital analysis would reveal a truth so disturbing it challenges our very understanding of the past. The image itself looks perfectly normal at first glance. Two children standing in a garden, dressed in their Sunday best, frozen in time by an old camera. No one who saw it over the years suspected anything was wrong. Not until Dr. Julian Croft decided to take a closer look. Julian worked as a digital archivist at Whitmore University. His job involved turning old photographs into digital files that could be preserved forever. In March of 2025, the university received a massive donation from the Harrowell estate. Hundreds of photographs, letters, and documents from a wealthy family that had lived in the area over a century ago. Julian's task was simple: scan everything, catalog it, and make it available for researchers. He had done this kind of work hundreds of times before, but this collection would be different. The photograph that changed everything was tucked between two landscape shots of the estate grounds. It showed two children, a boy who looked about 10 years old and a girl who appeared to be 7. The boy stood tall and serious, while the girl had her hand resting on his shoulder. Someone had written on the back in faded ink, "Thomas and Alara, June 1902. Julian placed it on his high-resolution scanner and began the digitization process. As the image appeared on his computer screen, he zoomed in to check the quality and sharpness. That's when he saw it. Something about the little girl's hand wasn't right. The fingers were too perfect, too evenly spaced. The way light hit the knuckles created an odd shine, like light bouncing off glazed pottery. Julian leaned closer to his monitor. He increased the magnification. The hand didn't look like flesh at all. It looked like it was made of porcelain, like a doll's hand. But that couldn't be right. This was supposed to be a photograph of two children. Julian saved the file and moved on to the next photo, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong with that image. That night, Julian couldn't stop thinking about the photograph. He pulled up the digital file on his home computer and studied it again. The more he looked, the more unsettling details he noticed. The girl's face was beautiful, but strangely expressionless. Her eyes seemed to stare at nothing. The boy's face told a different story. His jaw was clenched. His eyes showed something that looked like fear. This wasn't the face of a happy child posing with his sister. This was the face of someone being forced to do something they didn't want to do. The next morning, Julian decided to research the Harrowell family. He started with census records from 1900. He found the family easily enough. William Harrowell, age 35, head of household. Margaret Harrowell, age 32, wife. Thomas Harrowell, age 8, son. No daughter was listed. Julian checked again. Maybe Alara had been born after the 1900 census. He searched birth records for the area between 1900 and 1902. He found nothing. No birth certificate for any Alara Harrowell. He expanded his search to death records. What he found made his blood run cold. The death certificate was dated April 15, 1902. Alara Marie Harrowell, age 7 years and 3 months. Cause of death, fatal injuries from a fall. Julian read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Alara had died in April 1902, but the photograph was dated June 1902. How could a dead girl appear in a photograph taken 2 months after her death? Julian's first thought was that someone had gotten the date wrong. Maybe the photo was actually from before April. He went back to the collection and found a leather-bound book. It was a photographer's log, kept by someone named Alistair Finch. Finch had been a professional photographer who documented his work carefully. Julian flipped through the pages until he found June 1902. There it was, June 14, 1902. Harrowell Estate, Family Portrait Commission. 2 subjects, special requirements noted, payment received in full. Special requirements. What did that mean? Julian needed to know more about what happened at that photo session. He searched through the rest of the collection until he found what he was looking for. A personal journal, also belonging to Alistair Finch. The entries from June 1902 made Julian's skin crawl. June 13, 1902. Tomorrow I must complete the most disturbing commission of my career. The Harrowells have requested something I almost refused. They want a photograph of their son with his sister. The problem is that their daughter has been dead for 2 months. When I reminded them of this terrible fact, Mrs. Harrowell simply smiled and said, "I didn't need to worry about that." They had found a solution. June 14, 1902. I have just returned from the Harrowell estate, and I am deeply shaken. The solution the family spoke of is more horrible than I imagined. They have commissioned a doll. Not just any doll, but a life-sized replica of their dead daughter. It is crafted with terrifying skill. Porcelain skin, glass eyes, real human hair. They dressed it in Ilara's own clothes. From a distance, you might think it was a sleeping child. Up close, it is obviously not alive, but the resemblance is uncanny. The boy, Thomas, was made to pose with this thing as if it were his sister. The poor child was trembling. His parents stood behind me, watching to make sure he played his part. Mrs. Harrowell kept saying things like, "Stand up straight, Thomas," and "Put your arm around your sister." The father said nothing, but his presence was threatening enough. The boy did as he was told, but I could see the terror in his eyes. When I finished and began to pack my equipment, Mrs. Harrowell asked if the photograph would look natural. I told her it would look exactly as she wished. She seemed satisfied. June 15th, 1902. I cannot stop thinking about what I witnessed yesterday. The Harrowells are treating that doll as if it were their living daughter. They had set a place for it at the dinner table. They spoke to it. They expected the boy to speak to it too. This is not normal grief. This is madness. I fear for young Thomas. What will become of a child forced to live in such a twisted fantasy? Julian sat back from the journal, feeling sick. The truth was worse than he had imagined. Post-mortem photography was common in that era. Families often took pictures of deceased loved ones as a final memory. But this was different. This wasn't about preserving a memory. This was about denying death itself. He needed to know more about what happened to the family after the photograph was taken. Julian turned to the local newspaper archives. He found several mentions of the Harrowells in the society pages from 1902 and 1903. They attended parties and social events. The articles mentioned Mr. and Mrs. Harrowell and their son Thomas. Never any mention of a daughter. But there were hints that something was wrong. One article from December 1902 mentioned that young Thomas Harrowell had become withdrawn and was rarely seen at social gatherings anymore. Julian found a series of letters in the collection written by Margaret Harrowell to her sister Catherine, who lived in Boston. The letters started out relatively normal, discussing household matters and local gossip, but as Julian read through them chronologically, they became increasingly disturbing. August 1902. Thomas has been having nightmares. He claims Ilara talks to him at night. I told him that's wonderful, that his sister loves him and wants to comfort him. He seemed upset by this response. I don't understand why he can't appreciate having his sister back with us. October 1902. Thomas has become difficult. He refuses to eat dinner with us if Ilara is at the table. William had to discipline him severely yesterday. The boy needs to understand that our family is complete again. Ilara may not be exactly as she was, but she is still our daughter and his sister. December 1902. Something strange happened last night. I found Thomas in Ilara's room at 3 a.m. He was standing over her bed, holding a pair of scissors. When I asked what he was doing, he said he was trying to cut her hair because it kept growing. Of course, this is impossible. The doll's hair cannot grow. I fear Thomas may be developing some form of mental illness. February 1903. Thomas claims the doll moves when no one is watching. He says he has seen it turn its head and blink. William thinks the boy is lying to get attention. I'm not sure what to believe anymore. Sometimes when I look at Ilara, I could swear I see her breathing. May 1903. We found Thomas trying to bury the doll in the garden. He was crying and saying we needed to let Ilara rest. William was furious. Thomas is now locked in his room most of the day. We only let him out for meals and lessons. This is for his own good until he learns to accept his sister. The letters stopped abruptly after May 1903. Julian searched for more information about what happened to the family. He found what he was looking for in medical records from the State Asylum for the Insane, located just 30 miles from the Harrowell estate. Patient admission record, September 8, 1905, Thomas Harrowell, age 13. Admitted by parents for treatment of severe psychosis and violent tendencies. Patient claims to be haunted by a doll that resembles his deceased sister. Shows signs of extreme paranoia and delusion. Patient becomes violent when discussing the doll. Recommend indefinite commitment for treatment. Doctor's notes. September 15, 1905. Young Thomas continues to insist that his parents forced him to live with a replica of his dead sister. He claims the doll would whisper to him at night and move around the house on its own. These are clearly delusions brought on by mental illness. The boy's parents seem like respectable people who are simply concerned for their son's well-being. They mentioned that Thomas has always been troubled since his sister's tragic death 3 years ago. Doctor's notes, December 1905. Thomas has stopped speaking entirely. He spends most of his time sitting in the corner of his room, staring at the wall. When asked about his family, he begins to shake violently. We have decided to cease questions about his past as they only cause distress. Annual Report, 1910. Patient, Thomas Harrowell, remains in our care. No improvement in condition. Parents have ceased visiting. Annual Report, 1920. Patient shows signs of premature aging. Continues to be nonverbal. Occasionally becomes agitated and repeats the phrase, "She won't stop looking at me," over and over. Final record, March 3, 1931. Patient, Thomas Harrowell, deceased. Cause of death, heart failure. Age at death, 39. Patient spent 26 years in our care. No family members claimed the body. Buried in Asylum Cemetery, plot 847. Julian searched for any record of what happened to the doll after Thomas was committed to the asylum. He found nothing. The doll simply vanished from all records after 1905. There were no mentions of it in estate sale documents when the Harrowell parents died. No museum or collection claimed to have it. It was as if the doll that destroyed a family's sanity had simply disappeared. But there was one final document in the collection. A letter from a house servant named Mary, written to her cousin in 1906. Julian almost missed it because it was filed with household receipts. "Dear cousin, I must tell you what I witnessed before I left the Harrowell house for good. After young Master Thomas was taken away, I was tasked with cleaning out the nursery. I found that horrible doll sitting in a chair by the window. As I reached for it, I could have sworn it turned its head to look at me. I ran from that room and never went back. The next day, Mrs. Harrowell told me the doll was gone. She said she had taken care of it. But I saw her that night in the garden, digging by the old oak tree. She was burying something child-sized wrapped in white cloth. I gave my notice the next morning. Some things should stay buried, and some families are better left forgotten." Julian stared at the letter for a long time. Somewhere on the grounds of what was once the Harrowell estate, there might still be a porcelain doll buried beneath an oak tree. A doll that drove a young boy insane and destroyed an entire family. He thought about the photograph that started his investigation. That seemingly innocent picture of 2 children was actually evidence of one of the most disturbing cases of grief-induced madness he had ever encountered. The photograph still exists in the university's digital archive. If you know where to look, you can see it yourself. You can zoom in on that porcelain hand resting on Thomas Harrowell's shoulder. You can see the fear in his eyes. You can see the perfect, lifeless face of the doll that his parents insisted was his sister. It serves as a reminder that not all family photos capture happy memories. Some capture nightmares that should have been left in the past. What happened to the Harrowell family is more than just a creepy story from history. It's a warning about what happens when grief becomes madness, when parents cannot accept the death of a child, and when the living are forced to share their lives with the dead. Thomas Harrowell spent 26 years in an asylum because his parents couldn't let go of his sister. He died alone, haunted by memories of a doll that might have been more than just porcelain and glass. The most disturbing part is that we'll never know the complete truth. Was the doll just a doll, or was there something more to Thomas's claims? Why did every servant in the house quit within a year of Ilara's death? Why did the parents themselves die young, both passing away within months of each other in 1908? And, most importantly, where is the doll now? If you enjoyed this look into a story that history tried to forget, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. What do you think happened to the Ilara doll? Do you believe it was just a product of grief-stricken parents, or was there something genuinely supernatural about it? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, the next time you look at an old family photograph, look carefully. You never know what dark secrets might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to zoom in and discover the truth.